In today's video, we are going to go over 10 rules for writing cold emails that book sales calls that ultimately turn into clients. Now, for 10 years, I have been doing cold email for my own businesses, and for multiple years, I've helped over 300 people with their cold emails. So I have a lot of great data points to go off, and today I'm going to go ahead and share a few of my main findings from writing really good cold emails. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in with number one. And number one is it's about them, not you. Now, this is something I see a lot. There is a fine line between making sure that you explain why you're qualified, why you're a good fit, sharing your social proof, but also not talking too much about yourself. Your cold email really should be about the prospect. Any mention of you should be in direct correlation for what it means for the prospect, as opposed to just boasting or talking about yourself. You also need to have a balanced proportion where you don't want to use your company name or your name or I, me, my. You want to make it as much you, your company, your business as possible. Let's talk about a bad example and a good example here. A bad example would be I'm Michael, the founder of Done Free Meetings. I've been doing cold email for 10 years and I've worked for over 300 companies. This information is good for building trust, but it's all about me. It's not about them. A good example is taking that and applying it to their business and removing some of the fluff. Like, I'm the founder of Done For You Meetings. It doesn't really add anything to the script. They can see that in my signature anyway. So let's go through this. Because I've done cold email for 300 plus companies, I'm confident there's some strategies you'll appreciate and will apply to their company. That takes my experience, but it puts it in a frame that this is how it benefits you. Not just why am I so great, but this is how this is going to actually benefit your business. So I'm making sure the frame is about them, not myself. So just read your cold email out loud. And I really do emphasize read it out loud and just consider how much of this information about me can I make about them and what parts can I cut off? Because some things people don't really care about. Now, what I say if I've been doing cold email for 2 years, well, 2 years doesn't really mean anything, right? It needs to be something that prospect is actually going to see and it's going to build trust and make them more likely to work with you. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is less is more. Shorter emails, they get read more often, meaning a higher percentage of people actually read anything, and they get read more completely, meaning the average percentage of your email that's going to be read will be higher the shorter it is. Now, the goal is not to make your email super vague and not specific. We still need to convey what we do and why someone would consider responding to us, but we got to consider that this person is probably going to be reading the email on their phone, so the less words we can do that in, the better. And it's not only the length, but the readability and white space. Really long run-on sentences, massive paragraphs. They really do not get read. White space, 1-2 sentence paragraphs, that is going to be what works better. We also want to consider who our audience is. If our audience is a home service business owner, they are probably always going to be on their phone. If it's someone in software or e-commerce, we could probably have a little bit of a longer email because the assumption is maybe 50% be on their phone, maybe 50% on their email. Now, I also like to take my emails and go through them on a second pass, again, reading out loud. And I like to see what is filler, like what words can I just completely delete or shorten to get the same point across. So we do want to get our points across. We just want to do it in the most concise and efficient way possible. The third rule for writing good cold emails is social proof is how you compete. Now, I totally understand that everybody starts with no social proof. I did this myself, and so did everybody else. And naturally, it's a lot harder. Not even a little bit harder, it's a lot harder. Anybody that tells you otherwise is probably lying to you. It sucks. But the good news is it gets easier and easier. Now, it's important to know that the same campaign that has social proof with someone who has no social proof, meaning they don't have a following, they don't have case study, reviews, a nice website, just things that add trust, it will do worse. The person of social proof will do a little bit to a whole lot better. I've had the same campaign with 2 different companies where one flopped and one succeeded, all by having social proof. So know that this will get easier for starting out. However, if you do have social proof, you need to use it. I often see companies where they have social proof, they're just not utilizing it. Now, 3 quick examples. Have a Trustpilot link in your review or a Clutch or Google link if you have reviews. Maybe you add your YouTube channel as a PS to your signature. If you've worked with large companies, name drop them. If you have case studies, use them. Now, the goal isn't to make it all about me, back to point 1, but talk about here is my experience in social proof. This is what it means for your business and why I'm a better opportunity to work with as opposed to someone else. So make sure that you're leveraging as much social proof as you have. Number 4 is kind of adding on to social proof, and that's specificity wins trust. Now, this is in both our service and our case study. More specific numbers are going to come across more believable. If, for example, we helped a company increase results, it's too vague. A good example would be we helped this specific company go from this exact result to this exact result within this exact time frame. So we're specifying the time frame and the tangible result based on a case study, but also even if we're describing our service, we help people get more clients with email. We help people get 3 to 5 new clients every month with cold email. Or we help companies with ads. We help companies 1.5x their revenue of ads in 3 weeks, right? Whatever it may be, those are made up offers. But the more specific you can be, it makes it sound like you really know what you're talking about. And also it makes it more believable. Number 5 is relevance is key. A case study for a bakery is not relevant to a car dealership. That's just the first thing I want to mention here, because I see all the time where somebody uses a case study and it may be a good case study, but it has no relevance, no connection to who they're targeting. So that person might care a little bit, but they probably won't care a lot. And oftentimes you might even be better not using it. So that's really good to know. And relevance is really one of the main parts on cold email. I mean, between all of these, if I was rating importance, which these are not ranked in any certain order, relevance is probably one of the most important. Now, point 2 on this is the best solution to a problem that doesn't exist won't get interest. You could have the best list, the best deliverability, the best copywriting, personalization, and if people don't want what you sell, you're not going to get any meetings, right? So there needs to be a problem that actually exists for your solution to have relevance to it. Same thing, like a great website doesn't need website design, right? If you're building a list of people on WordPress saying, hey, we'll help you set up a WordPress website, it's not relevant. You need to make sure your relevance is specific to your targeting as well. Also, like make sure you're selling to titles that match. For example, a lot of people will have the same messaging to HR titles and sales titles and marketing titles, when in reality, their product or service is different for every title group. Same goes for companies. If you do ads, the way you do ads and describe it is going to be different for e-commerce to software to info product to local business to insurance. Same thing as social proof. Again, back to point 1, make sure your social proof is relevant. And also, most importantly, does the market actually want your offer? Now, if you don't know this, you're going to have to test to find out. But if the market doesn't want what you offer, it's nearly impossible to do well with cold email unless you're doing insane volume, and even then you probably won't be profitable. Number 6 is that your language needs to reflect the prospect's average comprehension. Not top comprehension, not bottom comprehension, but average. Let's look at an example. We use HighRoast to track ROAS and increase backend rev with Klaviyo. That sounds fine to somebody who's an e-commerce founder, an e-commerce manager, a marketing manager, but it sounds like garble to someone who's a pressure washer, for example. It's very unlikely that they speak that language. Just because that language is normal to you doesn't mean it's normal to them. So we want to make sure our vocabulary, language, and depth are relevant to the industry, company size, and also titles. Now, those are all different things. Vocabulary, what specific language does your audience use? Language, like what are the depth of the words you're using? And depth can mean, for example, ROAS versus profitable ads, right? Same thing in terms of what it means, but it's explained differently to a different person. Now, again, industries have different terminology. Company sizes have different terminology, from startups to enterprise, and also, again, on the titles. A lot of people really don't take into account the titles, which that's why you'll see me mention titles multiple times during this video. Number 7 is that the easier it is to reply, the more replies you will get. Pretty simple. Now, unless you have a really obscure niche and a really obscure title you're targeting, your prospect likely gets a lot of cold emails, anywhere from a few a week to maybe dozens in the most competitive spaces. And especially if they're a good lead in a large company, which you should be targeting ideally, they are going to get a lot of cold emails. If you're asking for a big, large commitment that takes time, mental energy, and maybe risk from an important person, unless you're bringing a great offer or you have a ton of social proof, the answer is likely no. Now, most people won't tell you no, they just won't respond or unsubscribe. So consider what you can offer that's easy to reply, and rather than making them commit to a meeting, it gives you an opportunity to showcase your competence, credibility, and also just effort. I use the ability to appointment set as a show, hey, look how much effort I'm putting into this. because that's a good indicator that I will do good work for them when I close them as a client. So make sure your CTA is easier unless you have tons of social proof, but even then, easier CTAs do better. I have a whole video on my channel on CTAs. I'm sure you could find it if you want to go really in depth on this topic. Number 8 is to make personal connections when it's possible and appropriate. Naturally, people like to buy from people like them and people they trust. Now, you won't always be like your prospect. Most of the time, you won't, but sometimes you will be. And in these cases, if you can use a connection that doesn't come across corny but comes across genuine and subtle, you can build trust and familiarity. Now, there's unlimited ways to do this. I'm going to name a couple. Location. Are they physically around you? Could you offer to meet for coffee or just mention you're from the same space? Personal interest. Do you like mountain biking and you're targeting mountain bike companies? Mention it. Alumni relations. Did they go to the same university or high school? Past business or work experience. If you're targeting CMOs of marketing agencies and used to be a CMO of a marketing agency, mention that. Religion. I know this is a funny one, but if you're targeting Christian companies, put a Bible verse in your signature. And the list goes on, because people like to buy from people like them. And if you can use this in a non-pushy and genuine way, you will naturally do better. Number 9 is a pretty basic rule of copywriting, but that's to explain benefits more than features. But don't forget the how. Now, whole idea here is people want to know, how does this make my life better and easier? Not necessarily all the technical deliverables. Now, you don't want to just explain the benefit, but you want to explain mostly the benefit and then a little bit, maybe 20 to 80% ratio of what the actual service is. Now, you also need to consider your audience. There will be some more technical titles where maybe they do want to just hear the technical information. But for most people, benefit. But again, like IT is an example, I'd probably do 50-50 benefit and deliverables / technical information. Now the final one, and I've been teasing this one throughout the whole 10 rules, but different titles have different pain points, desires, and responsibilities. The same product will not always have the same benefits to different titles. In fact, sometimes your offer might be negative for some titles but positive for others. They might see it as competing with their job even. So you'll often have completely different features or pains, goals, whatever it may be, that'll apply to marketing, sales, IT, HR, etc. So I normally do my campaigns in a way where I write 2 titles. Now, I do this by grouping. You could write a different script for every single title, but generally there's going to be multiple titles that have virtually the same pain points, goals, desires, or at least similar. It's a bit more efficient. So if I do have a client, or for my own campaigns where I'm targeting multiple groups within a company, I'll just group them together according to titles. And again, this helps with relevance, going back to the point of relevance being the most important thing in cold email. And there you have it. Those are my 10 rules for writing cold emails that get responses and clients. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. And if you do want to work together one-on-one, there's a couple links in my description where you can see ways that we could work together. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.